Hey guys, it's Claire. I'm down here at the beach in Honolulu drinking my mud water, and I just wanted to call to say thanks. It's been 2 weeks now that I'm off of coffee, which is amazing, and onto mud. And I honestly didn't think this would be the case, but somehow it's kind of been the catalyst for me to change other areas of my life where I didn't have the healthiest habits too. So that's it. Just wanted to say thanks for basically being, I guess, my gateway drug to healthier habits. Cheers.
Aloha, Claire. Thank you for sending that in. We love being your gateway drug to healthier habits. That's what we're here for. If anyone else wants to send a voice memo in to be played on this podcast, just bust out your phone, let us know who you are, some details about your surroundings, where you love drinking your mud. Keep it under a minute and then email it to podcast@mudwtr.com. And if we play it, we would love to send you a free box of mud. That's podcast@mudwtr.com. Welcome to the Trends with Benefits podcast. My name is Kyle Tierman, and here we give you little bits of wisdom to carry out into your day. And today we have none other than the great Rick Doblin on the importance of civil disobedience. Rick Doblin is the founder and executive director of the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, MAPS. He received his doctorate in public policy from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, where he wrote his dissertation on the regulation of the medical uses of psychedelics and marijuana, and his master's thesis on a survey of oncologists about smoked marijuana versus the oral THC pill in nausea control for cancer patients. He is doing incredibly important work in the world. He is a clear thinker, and he hasn't lost his sense of humor. So please give it up for Dr. Rick Doblin. I wanted to start off with asking you about this quote and see what it means to you and how it's informed your life. And the quote is, "Who believes that the law is unjust and breaks it willingly, suffering the consequences to be an example for others, actually has the highest regard for the law." Martin Luther King. What does that quote mean to you, and how has it informed your life?
Well, it means a lot to me, and there's two different ways that it means things to me. First off, I was a Vietnam War draft resistor, and so I spent a lot of time trying to think about how I would respond to the draft. And, I turned 18 in 1971. So I was near the end of the lottery. And there were a lot of different ways that people were objecting to the draft. Some were, getting their draft cards and burning their draft cards. Some were running away to Canada. Some were pretending to be crazy. Some were pretending to be gay. All the different things that people do. Some people shot themselves in the foot. Some people pretended to have bone spurs. People did all sorts of things like that. So I studied a lot of nonviolent resistance: Gandhi, Tolstoy, Martin Luther King, Thoreau, just a whole lot. And so what that quote means to me is that better than running away, but what I ended up, my strategy was to figure out how to drain the most energy from the system and to be willing to go to jail. So I purposely chose that I would be open to going to jail. And by draining the most energy from the system, that led to the conclusion that I should not even register for the draft. That the very first step where you collaborate is that you make it easier for them because you put your name on a list. Now, I was paying taxes. I had a Social Security number. I was in high school. I just assumed that they had my birth date, that I would be caught. And as it turned out, the strategy was the best possible one I could have chosen in a way, because absolutely nothing happened for not registering for the draft. And so, but that led me when I was 18 at that time to decide to be an underground psychedelic therapist and go through my own psychedelic psychotherapy, because my father was saying he didn't want me to go to Vietnam. He was supportive of my willingness to go to jail, but he said, "You're going to be a felon. You're never going to be able to have a career that involves a license because you will be disqualified. And I was like, okay, that's a price I'm going to have to pay. I'm not willing to go to Vietnam in order to get a certain kinds of job. And then I thought, aha, I can be an underground psychedelic therapist. You don't need a license for that. So that quote has been fundamentally important to me in my early on strategy. And at that time, I identified as, counterculture, drug using criminal, because not just because of the drug law, but also because I was thinking to go to jail. The second thing that's really surprised me about this particular quote from Martin Luther King was something that I didn't learn about for almost another 15 years. And that's when I decided to do, for my new college, a senior thesis doing a long-term follow-up to the Good Friday experiment. So the Good Friday experiment was done by Timothy Leary, Walter Pankey in 1962, this tremendous experiment about whether psychedelics could produce religious experiences. And it took 20 divinity students from Andover Newton Theological Seminary into Boston University Chapel. And it was a Harvard PhD. And they went through a Good Friday experiment, and all of them got a pill. Half was placebo, half was nicotinic acid. And the minister was Reverend Howard Thurman, who was this incredibly dynamic Black minister. And it turned out that Howard Thurman had been Martin Luther King's mentor when Martin Luther King got a PhD at Boston University. And also Howard Thurman had spent time with Gandhi. And he was one of the principal advisors for the nonviolent resistance strategy of the civil rights workers. So we hear a lot about John Lewis and Bloody Sunday, and a lot of these people learned from Reverend Howard Thurman about this nonviolent approach. And I think that's what really helped them make a lot of progress. So when I went to the Marsh Chapel, just to see, now this is in the middle 80s, to just see where the Good Friday experiment took place, there's a statue, an art exhibit, sort of a statue in front of the Marsh Chapel dedicated to Martin Luther King. And on the side of that statue is that quote from Martin Luther King. So it was an inspiration for me when I was younger to help me, decide to be a draft resistor. And then later on, as I'm doing psychedelics and got into that, there's that same quote again. And then the connecting link is Howard Thurman, who was Martin Luther King's advisor. So I do think that we have to have our own internal morality, and that we can't rely on the outside laws to provide that. They can be guidance, but we have to have our own internal moral compass. And a lot of times things that are legal are immoral. Voter suppression, and a lot of the Nazis made, quote, legal laws. We have all sorts of laws that are immoral. So anyway, I wonder how it is that you decided to ask that question about that quote.
It was by total chance. I had no idea that you even knew about the quote.
Really?
No.
I okay. See, I'm pretty gullible.